And ladies and gentlemen, joining us right now is Pat Buchanan, the one and only former presidential candidate, of course, and author and columnist, and you name it, you know him, you love him. Hello, Pat. How are you, sir?
Doing fine, sir.
All right. So let's start with this missing plane. It doesn't appear that the two phony passport guys who got their tickets bought by the Iranian, doesn't appear they were there to blow up the plane. So if we work under that assumption, I mean, have you ever seen anything like where the heck could this plane be?
I don't know. I guess we lost that one over the Atlantic that went out of Brazil. I think it was going to France. It disappeared like this, and they lost the one, and there was real controversy about it that flew out of, I guess it was JFK, and was lost a few miles off the coast.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like some kind of catastrophic event occurred, because when there's no communication whatsoever, it means the pilots or the plane are wholly incapacitated all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, it's scary, and of course, the threat of terror or a missile, all these things are out there. Even the TWA flight that you alluded to off the coast of New York, a lot of people swore under oath that they saw a missile go, or something like a missile go up and hit the plane before it exploded, but we may never know the truth. Let's move on to something we do know the truth about. We may not know the ending yet, though, and that's Ukraine. You wrote a great piece, Hillary, Hitler, and Cold War II. Do you believe that the events as they've unfolded puts us officially, I mean, nobody's said it, but in your mind officially in a Cold War II?
No, I don't think so. The heart of the Cold War was communist ideology, and it animated the Sino-Soviet bloc, as we called it, and the Soviet Empire. It was an ideology which was girdled the globe, which was determined basically to eliminate Western civilization as a rival and to become sort of the guiding philosophy, religion, whatever you want to call it, of the entire world. And that no longer exists in the Soviet Union. You've got Putin, whatever you say about Vladimir Putin, he's trying to restore the Russian Orthodox faith, which is far different than Marxism, Leninism, or communism. And what he's trying to do with the other elements of the old Soviet Union is bring them together in an economic union, not again in a political union as far as I can see. And also the manner in which he's taken Crimea is nothing like the manner in which Stalin behaved in the Ukraine, where he sent Kaganovich down there and they murdered between 5 and 9 million people during what they call the Holodomor. So I think this is vastly different than that era. That's not to say that this is a welcome development, but I think to call it something on the order of what Khrushchev did in Hungary or Brezhnev in Czechoslovakia or Stalin for his whole career is an exaggeration.
And Hillary's bringing up Hitler? I mean, what do you think about that one?
Well, as I wrote in the column, it's almost always a mistake to bring Hitler up in this whole thing. But I did argue that if you take a look, and as I say, bringing up Hitler usually distorts the argument, and it all goes off into the Sudetenland somewhere. But if you take the motivations of Germany after World War I and Versailles and the way it was torn apart and fell apart, and pieces of it were given to about 8 different nations, and it was sliced in half, and Danzig was given up, and Austria was torn to pieces, and Hungary was diminished. And you see the resentment and the hostility and the determination and the irredentism, the desire to get back what we have lost. I think you see some of that animating Russia today. It feels it lost the Cold War. Not only that, it lost the empire. It lost the Soviet Union. 1/3 of the country disappeared and 14 new states. Some of those states broke apart. There's a real sense that the Americans took complete advantage of them, moved NATO right into their front yard after they had held out a hand of friendship. So I think some of that resentment and some of that sentiment that we got to get back what we have lost, that animated the Germans in the 1920s and 30s, animates the Russians and Putin today.
Well, they're going to vote on Sunday, apparently.
I'll tell you how that's going to come out, Steve.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Anybody want to bet? So when that vote is done and it's over and it's counted and we know the results, is that going to be it? It's over and done with?
Yeah, I think Ukraine. I think Crimea is probably Russia's for the foreseeable future. Sure. I don't think the Americans are going to fight for it. I don't think we should. We've got no obligation to it. And while Ukraine claims it, Russia does have historic claims in the Crimea. That's a naval base of the Baltic Sea Fleet for 2 centuries. Catherine the Great brought it into Russia back around the same time that the British gave up at Yorktown. So I think there are claims there, but I do think this. I think Russia moved defensively here. I don't agree with those who say this is the beginning of a big new move across Europe. I think what they saw was politically and diplomatically and economically, they just saw the Ukraine torn away from them by 3 months of demonstrations, both by mobs and by protesters, which tore Ukraine away from them. And Putin said to himself, well, we may lose Ukraine here, but we cannot lose our strategic base in the Black Sea that we've had for hundreds of years, and that's imperiled now. So let's preemptively move and retake it.
So you would classify this as a preemptive defensive move on the part of Putin?
I think it's certainly preemptive on his part. I think he feared that
because you said defensive, so I just want to make sure you said it.
I don't mean, let me say this. I think it is a move by Putin, I think, to make sure that he does not lose the Crimea as well as the way he's lost the Ukraine politically and otherwise. So in that sense, it's defensive. But no doubt, it's a crossing of borders and a capture of territory which is not legally belong to Russia. So you can conclude from that what you wish.
Okay, cool. Now let me. I said cool to Pat Buchanan. I never thought I'd say that. Anyway, I don't think I've said that word on this show. Anyway, let me let you hear someone who's not cool, Nancy Pelosi. We had Harry Reid on the floor of the Senate the other day saying that anybody who has an Obamacare horror story is it's total lies. And now listen to Nancy Pelosi. We have that cut, right? Okay, here's Nancy Pelosi. Give a listen.
I asked a Republican friend why his party remains so opposed to extending the vital lifelines for struggling families and really hungry children. This colleague's response was telling in its blunt nature, and it's stunning in its honesty. What he said was, to the Republican caucus, these people you're talking about are invisible. And the Republican caucus is indifferent to them. Invisible and indifferent. This is just plain wrong. That is not the leadership the American people deserve, and it is up to us to demonstrate clearly how Democrats are different, that no American is invisible to us, and we will never be indifferent to their needs.
I mean, and this, well, go ahead, weigh in on that. A friend of hers told her.
Well, that I would echo Nancy Pelosi and say that is not the kind of leadership America needs. That is an outrageous comment to make. It is demeaning to Republicans. It is dishonest in my judgment. The idea that liberals would somehow care more about the innocent and the young. Certainly they don't about the unborn. We know that. And the idea that they're far more concerned about starving children is preposterous. I think most Americans, America's a good-hearted country, and that's true of most Americans across the political spectrum. And to make this statement about our Republican opponents, you wonder why. I mean, the Democrats say, it's too nasty and divisive up here. Well, that's the kind of statement that's responsible for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I could follow this up with Harry Reid actually saying on the floor of the Senate, actually at a press conference when CNN, Dana Bash asked him during the shutdown, why not just fund the NIH, that the Republicans are going to pass that bill. You say you won't bring it up if it saves one kid with cancer. And he said, well, what do I care? I have people who are out of work back on furlough in my home state. So, who is it that doesn't care?
Well, that's one thing that still bothers me, the idea that the Republican House shut down the government. It voted
John
three times
Boehner
to fund the government, and it voted once not to fund Obamacare. Then it voted, I think, for a one-year suspension.
Unfortunately, John Boehner reinforced that he was forced to shut down the government by the conservative group. So
it is astounding, but it tells you really that the media just echoed the Democratic statements that the Republicans have voted to shut down the government when they never voted to shut it down, and repeatedly they voted to keep the entire government open.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Listen, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Okay, you take it easy.
You too. Pat
Bye-bye.
Buchanan, who is very cool, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax television.